My dear friends, aren't my words touching your heart? Without the truth experience, this birth is vain, vain, and vain. Bliss, peace, and knowledge are part of your very nature. But the demon called ego is disassociating you from your nature or the self. As long as you decorate this demon called ego with your studies, wealth, and fame, how can you attain bliss? You are becoming an obstruction to yourself in knowing yourself. Can't you swallow yourselves? One who swallows himself becomes a yogi, and a yogi, in turn, becomes a jnani. One who can't swallow himself becomes a bhogi, or the enjoyer of sensual pleasures, who, in turn, becomes a rogi, or the diseased person.
And arthi doesn't infer only those who crave money but also those who crave anything in this world. Man needs money, but money doesn't bestow jnana. If money bestows jnana, all the rich people in the world would have become self-realized souls by now. But did any rich man attain self-realization? This doesn't mean that money has no worth. You can donate if you are rich, bringing higher worlds and births. If your donation is sattvic, it will reduce your tendencies and enable your spiritual progress. The money you spend to attain worldly happiness will fetch you bhoga or pleasure.
You are fine as long as you enjoy the bhoga, but it converts into a tendency and tortures you for several births and thereby hampers your spiritual progress. However, the money spent on others would always be worthwhile. It accompanies you even in future births and thereby fetches higher births. Sri Ramana said, "How can you refrain from being charitable if you are aware that whatever you give comes back to you multiplied manifold? You must donate only to the deserving people. Donations to undeserving people will, in turn, fetch sin. One who donates flawlessly and humbly to noble-hearted people, holy people, and those who don't misuse the same will attain merit and get the path towards jnana."
In the Gita, Krishna said, "I will liberate you if you remember me in your last moments." My dear friends, God's utterance is true, but you cannot remember God on your deathbed. You only remember those desires for which you craved throughout your lives but not God on your deathbed. How can you think of God in your last moments when your thoughts are not in your control? He, whose thoughts are not within his control, is not free. It is possible only for a jnani to remember God on his deathbed.
The tendencies troubling you in the present birth result from actions fondly done in your previous births. As you had craved for them in your previous births, they are chasing you currently. Whatever you see currently is nothing but the result of your past actions. Sadhana, or spiritual effort, is required only to transcend these tendencies. As you worship God with flowers, if you can adore the world with your words and deeds, you will certainly be enlightened.
You always desire wealth and an attractive body, but how many desire beautiful thoughts? We all desire only for the good, but the bad always follows the good. As our shadow accompanies us, the sorrow should inevitably accompany our joy. We do not pray to God for the sake of God. We pray to Him only to get rid of the sorrow. What else exists in this world besides selfishness, jealousy, self-praise, and criticism? Accordingly, there exists abundant disturbance and sorrow in this world.
That which takes birth is defective, and that which does not take birth is ever perfect. You were never born, it is your body that took birth. It is your body that grows and finally perishes. But you are the self, which has neither birth nor death. It is ever existent and denotes the absolute truth. Though these words of God are absolutely true, we cannot digest them due to our faulty intellect. Therefore, God asked us to trust His words.
He can never remain in solitude whose heart is filled with delusion. Whether it is in this birth or some other birth, a deluded person or an attached person cannot escape disease. One who is affected by desire and death will lose his freedom and will undoubtedly turn out to be a sinner. Only the one who regulates his senses can reform his ego. One who is not Niyatendriya, or regulator of senses, cannot become Jitendriya or controller of senses. And one who is not Jitendriya, cannot become Athendriya or the one who is beyond senses.
Everybody desires to sleep. Why? It is because you find happiness in sleep. But from where do you get the happiness in sleep? In your deep sleep, your mind merges into its source. But what exists in its source? It is happiness. Though you are happy in your deep sleep, you are not conscious of the same. It is because of the non-existence of the mind in deep sleep. Someone within you must say that you are happy in your deep sleep. Then who is that someone? That someone exists even in your waking state. The I thought arises as and when you are fully awake from sleep. It is this, I thought, which gets all the other thoughts. It is these thoughts that disassociate you from the self. Until and unless you find the source of these thoughts, the tortures of this mind are inevitable.
Destiny is limited to the body. It doesn't affect your inner state. There is no relationship between the body's destiny and the self-efforts that lead to self-realization. God has given us only one freedom: the freedom to make self-efforts to reform ourselves. The body's destiny is inevitable even for a self-realized soul, but he will not be affected by it. As the visions in our dreams disappear in the waking state, all our tendencies disappear with the awakening of Jnana.
Idol worship was prescribed only to control the senses and mind. Adoring idols doesn't constitute idol worship, but the very thought that God exists separate from us constitutes idol worship. One cannot attain jnana until duality is transcended. We all desire bhakti or devotion but lack the sufficient strength to achieve it. The very purpose of idol worship is to increase such strength. As long as we possess body-mindedness and name-mindedness, idol worship is inevitable.
My dear friends, when we see God in the temple, our eyes get closed, and our senses get controlled. Even the wavering or indecisiveness of the mind ceases. Do you know the reason for this? Our eyes get closed even without our knowledge for the following reason. God is introverting our mind, saying thus, I am not external to you. I exist within you. I constantly shine as the self within your heart. Whatever you see of me externally is only a vision. My existence within you is only true. Therefore, look within.
Everybody keeps thinking about their past or future, killing or wasting their present. Even the past and future represent the present at some point of time. If you have to cross a bridge in your journey, will you cross the bridge when you come across it, or even before the bridge arrives? Will you firmly sit down in a place without moving further and think about how to cross the bridge? Hence, why should you think about either the past or the future?
गुणत्रयव्यतीतोऽहम् ब्रह्मादीनां च साक्ष्यहम् अनन्तानन्दरूपोऽहम् अहमेवाहमव्ययः।